Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Thanks for that. Okay, so let's get started. So, question for you all. How long have you been in the industry? I see.
Almost 2 years.
2 years? Okay. Okay, great.
Almost 3 years.
Almost three and one. All right, that's great. And how about Rose and Alex? How about you? How long have you been in the industry?
I'm 6.
6 years? Okay,
Yeah.
great.
I
And how about
started
you,
this
Rose?
winter.
This winter?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. So, this is Madeline. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Everyone, good morning. My name is Madeline Andrewell. I work with Scotiabank, so I'm a home financing advisor or mortgage specialist. Scotiabank.
You've been in finance, the financial world for a long time.
Yeah, I've been doing this. I guess I've been in banking, you could say, for 7 years now.
So she's got lots of experience, which is great. And my name is Michelle Crane. So I work for a company called Sagen. You're going to learn a lot about Sagen today. And I have worked as an account manager for 17 years with Sagen. So I just celebrated my 17th anniversary.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks. So here we are. So I love what I do because I get to hang out with Madeline a lot. So we work together as partners, but also I think it's really cool when we can all come together. So we have you as realtors who we're all in this together, but at the same time, we don't always get to see each other, but we're always working with home buyers. So I wanted to start with just this little meme, which I think is really funny. And I think it is a testament how we have been feeling over the last little while. We have our plan and we think, okay, it's going to go smoothly. And then you don't even start with the bike. There's a boat in there, it's raining, and then it always ends in sunshine though, right? I also think though that this is what buyers are feeling, right? And behind the scenes, we try and make it look like smooth sailing, but at the same time, we know that there's been some really pivotal up and downs. There's still optimism, right? Don't stop believing. We could play that Journey song right now, we would. So there's three things that that Madeline and I want to cover with you today. So we have our introduction, so just who we are, all that great stuff. And then we're going to talk a bit about the current state of the housing market. So where we are right now. And we did a first time home buyer survey, which I gave you. So this little piece of information. Hi. And this is essentially hot off the press. So I just picked 5 things you can focus on with first time home buyers and some of those key opportunities. Okay. So let's get started with a little bit of an introduction. This is a wheel, home buying process wheel, and we're all in this. As we go through, Madeline will chime in here as well, but where we all land within this. So some of you don't know who Sagen is. Depending on your vintage, you may know us as Genworth. We rebranded to Sagen because we were purchased. We were now 100% Canadian company. So for us, we are one of 3 default mortgage insurers in Canada. So you have CMHC, Canada Guarantee, Sagen. So for any of your buyers who are working with Madeline, for instance, and they say to her, I need to put 5% down or anything less than 20% down, by law, Madeline says, okay, I'm going to send it to one of the 3 insurers. And then your clients pay a premium, and then we insure that property. Okay. We insure it for the lender, like at Scotiabank. So if something happens and life happens and your clients are like, oh no, I can't afford this house anymore, I'm going to need to foreclose. That's where we come in and we absorb that risk for the bank. So we offer a whole host of products because of that in partnership with Scotiabank, as well as lower rates, all that good stuff. So where do we all fit? Yes.
Is it just for Scotiabank?
So no. So we are with lenders across the country. So we're national. So all lenders, mortgage finance companies as well. Okay. So credit unions as well. So the nice thing though, the interesting thing with Scotiabank, it's a little bit different than other lenders. and some can and some can't. But when you look at the big five, like Madeline, for instance, can choose the insurer from her desk. And she has the option to choose all three, which for her, it's a really great thing. And for your clients, it's a really great thing. Because to have that opportunity to choose, where say one of us is like, no, we can't go ahead, because sometimes underwriting is subjective, or we're not comfortable, and she says, I believe in this deal, we need to make this happen, she can then move it to another insurer. So she has the option for all three, which I think is a competitive advantage for
Yeah.
sure.
It is big time. Michelle's just a phone call away, basically, if I need help on something to make something work.
Yeah.
She's a phone call away, which is a huge advantage that we have at Scotiabank where we can choose.
Yeah, and have that kind of relationship too. So for your buyers, it's a really good thing. So let's look at the home buying wheel. So when you have a buyer, do most of your buyers come, and Rose and Alex, feel free to chime in, do they come pre-approved already?
I'd say
Not
like
always?
50-50.
Is that a question that you ask? Alex,
yeah.
did I hear you chime in?
Every
time.
time. I don't
Okay,
go, I don't
every
take,
time.
I don't take anybody out unless I personally know them and I have a good feeling. I don't take anybody out and waste my time unless I know and I've talked to a lender.
Okay, well, that's good. So they come to you pre-approved. So what happens in the pre-approval process? I think sometimes buyers think that they're fully approved
Right.
when this happens. So what happens in that process? So that's where we start with lender pre-qualification, and that's, so you take that part away.
So I think we can all agree that being pre-approved should kind of be their first step, where, your buyer knows exactly how much they can afford, where their budget is in terms of what works for them. So in terms of that process, and why we call it a pre-approval, it's a conditional approval. So we take basically the main piece that we take is their income documents. We take a look at that, and then we also discuss their assets and their liabilities, just to get a holistic picture of them and what their financial picture looks like. Based off of that, we talk a little bit about down payment, just to make sure that it's there as well. And if they have the documents right away to send in, we get those as well, along with their income documents. Once we have all of that, then I submit basically a pre-approval application. So we do run their credit. So we get a really good idea of what all of that looks like. Once all of that kind of goes through, and also even before I submit an application, I like to ask all of the questions, and I kind of do like a manual calculation on what I think it's going to look like. And if I think there's going to be obstacles, I'll let the client know, or if I think, it's going to look great, I'll let them know. And if we're good to kind of move forward with things and pull their credit for the pre-approval application, we submit it through. So that comes back, we get a formal pre-approval letter that shows how much that they can afford in terms of a mortgage based off of down payment and whatnot. Then once they have that letter, they have that peace of mind, and then you have the peace of mind that, okay, this is what they can afford, and this is what that they can move forward with. Outside of the pre-approval, I'll just quickly touch on that. Once we have an accepted offer on a home, that's where we kind of turn it into like a live application. And that's where we factor in the property and, the property taxes, the heating costs, all that good stuff. And then that's where the client gets that formal, full approval to kind of meet that financing condition.
How long can you hold a rate?
It's a great question. So when we do a pre-approval, a big advantage for clients, especially these days where everything is so uneasy, we can hold a mortgage rate for 120 days. We can actually hold 2 for them if they're unsure. So if rates go up, they're still locked in for 120 days on the rate they have. And if rates go down, of course, we'll pull the lower rate for them as well.
Hold that rate on pre-qualification,
Exactly.
right? It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a firm offer on.
It doesn't. Yeah, right when we do the pre-approval.
Ideal right now.
Exactly, we hold the rate.
And
Yeah.
for 120 days, usually it's 90 days, but 120, and in a decreasing rate environment, it's really great. The other piece, the offer to purchase. So if you, Madeline, if you find that somebody doesn't have a realtor, because many times they're coming to you, is that a conversation that you have?
That's always a conversation that I have. So during actually my pre-approval process, one of the questions that I always ask is, do you have an agent that you're working with. Sometimes it's yes and sometimes it's no, and they're always open to recommendations. So that's something, to consider as well. Like I'd love to build that relationship with you all as well.
And then we have, so once you have the offer to purchase, so it doesn't become a live deal until there's an offer and an address, right? So that's when your clients will go back in to see Madeline. Madeline looks at the property. She looks at the client again. Key message for us is do not spend or change anything in your credit between the pre-approval, the lender approval.
Huge.
It's a huge thing. I just
Buy a
had
car.
somebody come across, they bought a Ford F-150 and we were like, oh, we can't. So when you look at this lender approval, once everything's approved, if they're putting less than 20% down, that's where we jump into this space, the default mortgage insurer. And this is the lender choice. So this is where Madeline will say, okay, you know what? Going to send you to Sagen for X, Y, and Z reasons. It could be product, it could be relationship, whatever that is. So then we need to approve it. So 2 approvals happen at this stage. If it's 20% down and they don't need us, it just goes from the lender approval over to the funding. So everything gets funded at Scotia and then it goes to the lawyer, right?
Exactly.
This is the dumbed down version of the home buying process. But sometimes like the lender approval comes to us, it could take 2 minutes to get an auto approval, or it may take a bit longer. We may come back with some more questions. Our turnaround time on that is usually like an hour, hour and a half. Or it may be that we need to do an appraisal for whatever reason. So maybe they're doing big renovations, like a purchase plus improvements. We want to make sure that the value's there. Whatever that looks like, that's where that could take, a little bit longer. Or maybe it comes back and it's a no. And that's where Madeline jumps in. She says, okay, we talk about it to see if there's any stone left unturned. And if not, she has the option to go to the other 2 insurers as well. Okay. So then once we hit this part, then it goes around to the mortgage funding. So we are all in this together. We just work at different stages. But the nice thing and the message is, like, all around the way, we're always working together. You and Madeline more closely than me, but I'm behind the scenes, right? So let's take a look at the market. Any questions on the home buying wheel? Rose, Alex, anything on that? Pretty good. Okay. So I've just pulled these stats from CREA yesterday, and I wanted just to share. If we just look at the Halifax, the 3rd one down. So residential sales up from last quarter. So this is year over year from last quarter by 18.2%. I'm definitely not surprised by that because I feel like, Madeline, you can attest to this. The breath came out of the market
Definitely.
last year. So things starting to rebound. Well, it's starting. We see something happening. Prices right now, the average price in Halifax, so within HRM, is about 576. We're still affordable here compared to other parts of the country. The average home price, my risk manager just told me this yesterday, in Canada is over $730,000. So even though we're feeling that within Nova Scotia, like, oh, affordability is a thing. Yes, it is a big thing. We're still in a better place than a lot of areas across the country. Prices right now are relatively flat, 4.7. If this was last year, these would have been price increases at like 23%. So, things right now, obviously, we're going to be talking a bit, but it's scarcity. It really is about that. Fundamentals are good. So when we look at employment, population growth, and supply, these are just 3 things that I'm just going to touch on briefly because there's opportunity within some of these for you as well that Madeline and I are going to cover. The first one, employment. I'm not going to touch on a lot of this, but something interesting that we found from our first-time home buyer survey that came out this recently, hot off the press. We did one a year ago. Now we did another one. Was the age of the first-time home buyer is actually higher than it was in 2022. The reason is because first-time home buyers have been feeling beat up and they went to the sidelines. I'm sure a lot of you can attest to this. Previously, the age for a first-time home buyer was age 25 to 39. It is now increased to age 45. So in your marketing, don't forget about the age 40 to 45. And the reason why I lump this into the employment piece is because they're still working, they have their jobs, they have money, and they have some savings. So they're ready to go. When things happen and when they start coming back into that arena of the market, don't forget this age group. Okay. So that's key. Population growth. 80% of our population growth here in Nova Scotia is interprovincial and new Canadians. So when we look at this, if you look across the bottom, it shows the year 2020. Things started going up in 2019 where we're looking at immigration. So this is our growth rate. The borders closed in 2020. And then as soon as those vaccinations started flowing in, the government's like, okay, well, we have more confidence now. Let's open up the borders. We need people to get back to work. So things started increasing. This year, in 2024 and then 2025, we're going to be welcoming 485,000 new Canadians to our country. And then that's set to increase across to 2025. New to Canada is probably one of the hottest programs that you're seeing.
So
Yeah.
we have a really great New to Canada mortgage program that allows like newcomers to buy homes.
Yeah. And we're going to talk, I have a little bit of a highlight on that you can talk about too.
Okay.
When we look at provincial, I just want you to take a look at the right side of this, provincial growth, Atlantic Canada. So Canada is 38%, Atlantic Canada 2.7, but the bottom line is the age. So is immigration going to be slowing down in Atlantic Canada? And the answer is no, because 43% of our population is over the age of 55. They're going to be retiring, right? We need people to work. So this is a new reality, but interprovincial is a huge piece too. So in Nova Scotia, last year, we welcomed 33,000 new people living here, and 11,000 of those were immigrants and the rest were interprovincial. So people coming from other provinces, right? So just to keep that in mind too. I think those are big numbers. Key question is supply. Is that your question? What's going on? Where's everybody going to live? What is happening? It's a huge one. And right now, I talked to our team at Sagen and I was like, so when? Like, what's happening? How much longer? And they said, we're going to be living in this world of scarcity for a few years into the future, right? So the next 3-5 years, housing starts. I just looked at a stat this morning where year to date, we're at 8,500 new housing starts. Within Nova Scotia. A lot of those are rental properties in Halifax. So there's a lot of cranes in the air. They're not necessarily condos or single family dwellings. A lot of those are rentals. But you'll notice just as we needed new housing, things kind of went down a little bit. So 2023, things went down, high interest rates, labor shortage. And now, but we're trying to open things up a little bit. So things are starting to percolate more as interest rates start to come down. Builders can afford things now. And at the same time, we need to get things going. And finally, I thought you would find this interesting. So there's a lot of questions about, renewals. What happens as rates were going up? Could people afford their mortgages? One thing that we look at as a default insurer is delinquencies. So what does that look like? And something that gives us solace is that people have equity in their homes. They have residual equity. So what this chart is showing you is from 2019 to now, in Nova Scotia, our prices went up 70.4%. They've come down a little bit to 7%, like by 7%, just a bit. In Ontario and BC, bigger spreads with that. This will probably get made up as interest rates start to come down, people come off the sidelines into the arena. When will that happen? We don't know. But again, I just thought this was interesting. Refinances may be something that's on your radar too.
It is, yeah,
People refinancing maybe to buy new properties.
a big time. There's a lot of people wanting to refinance, take equity out of their homes, maybe to buy a new property. So that's another piece too, that's to consider when your clients are looking at purchasing.
So let's look at first time home buyer trends. So when we look at this, I always think opportunities, and no matter what you can do to like plant the seed, creates a raving fan. There's this one hotel in Cape Breton that I always talk about whenever I hear raving fan. So one of our colleagues from Scotiabank, Rod Beaton, he was staying at the Hampton Inn and Suites in Sydney, Cape Breton in the middle of winter. We all know what winter's like in Cape Breton. It's like crazy storm. Anyway, he's like, I gotta get on the road. So he's packing up. He's like, I gotta check out. There's a crazy snowstorm outside. I need to get home back well, then it was like just outside Halifax. So he's like rushing around. He thinks, okay, I got to clean off my car. I got to do the whole 9 yards. So he goes down, he checks out, he's wheeling his suitcase out, double doors open, and every car in the parking lot is cleaned off. So he said, oh my gosh. So he turned around and they're like, hot coffee? He says, yes. Newspaper. He goes, I could read a couple headlines. And then they gave me time. So all of those little things make a huge difference in the world of one of our clients, right? And when I look at our business, creating raving fans, this is something that Madeline, as well as us at Sagen, we can come together and we can bring these to your home buyers. So there's a couple of key things. One is about making sure like education is key. So when somebody's coming to speak, to come and learn what you can, I think is huge. Knowing what's out there, knowing what's a pain point for home buyers is important, but also things that you can talk about to give them things like security, money back in pocket are also a huge deal. So here's the 5 trends. I have 5 that we pulled from the home buyer thing. So the first is that age group, 40 to 45. When you're marketing, we already talked a little bit about this. Do not forget them. Okay. So focusing on that as well. So that's the first one. The second is energy efficiency. So 85% of home buyers in general are concerned about the energy efficiency of their home. So that carbon footprint, right? So what are they when they're purchasing that home, how can they make it more energy efficient? How can they save money? What does that look like? Think about this, and I think of 2 things. One, purchase plus improvements. People do like windows and doors to do those renovations to make their home more energy efficient. And they can roll it into their mortgage.
Exactly.
So have you guys heard of Purchase Plus? Okay. Do you ever talk about it? Do your clients realize that that's something that they can do? Okay. So this is something in what part of your conversation? Would that be like your first part of the conversation?
Yeah, it's one of the things that I like to mention because especially where, it's hard to find something where there's not too much out there right now. It's nice just for our clients just to kind of have in their back of their minds that they can do those purchase plus improvements. So if, they found a home, but they're not super happy with the bathroom, for example, they want to renovate it, we can incorporate that into the mortgage. Or if they want to.
It's like one payment.
Exactly.
So they're not using their savings. Yeah.
Exactly. So really like what we do is we'll fund the mortgage as like in terms of the purchase price, like the as is value. And then we let them, complete the improvements. And then once those are complete, depending on, how large they are, we add it on top of the mortgage and pay them back what they've used to complete the improvement. So that's huge these days, just where, there's not too much inventory out there right now. It's something for both of like our clients to consider when they're looking for their home.
It's interesting because I'm just thinking there was a Scotiabank manager outside the city, and He said, I'm in it. I do mortgages. I do all these things, but when I'm the home buyer, it's totally different, which I can attest to that. So he said he was looking at this house and he goes, no, this is not for me. And then his realtor said, you could like do purchase plus PPI it. It's like, it's a verb. It's these things. And can you see it now? And he's like, anyway, he bought the house. So, even when we're in it, we sometimes forget about it. So it's always making sure that we talk about it and that we keep it at the forefront. Even if they are buying just below what they qualify for, maybe they do save that money and do renovations. So it's within that room.
So if the client is approved for X amount of mortgage and the mortgage is recorded, you record it for the higher amount pending the improvement, right?
Yes.
So at the closing, they're only going to advance price of the property and what's required. Then the renovations are later. It's exactly wrong.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So reason why we put this under the energy efficient piece is our number one improvement that we see right now is flooring. And our number two is heat pumps. And new windows, new doors for this energy efficient piece. The other part of this, it's about money back in pocket. I can't share it at Sagen. You do a wonderful job, Madeline, talking about this, but this can also come from you. The insurers, because it's not just the Sagen show, have energy efficient rebates. So what this means is when you are putting, so for me, when I bought my house, I put 5% down. On my mortgage amount, I paid a premium, 4%. So that amount was a few $1,000s, like $11,000, but it was over the time of my mortgage. Now, with the rebates, you can get a refund on that premium that you paid. So up to 25%. So if you have anybody who's building a home, like maybe you're working with a builder, maybe it's a turnkey property, so brand new construction, or maybe they buy this house, they're going to do some improvements, even out of their own money. It doesn't have to be purchase plus. They can do those within 2 years and get 25% back on that premium that they paid. So this can be equal to a few $1,000s. I think our biggest premium, I don't even know what the rebate would have been, but it can definitely, especially within HRM now, with the size of mortgages and the size of premiums, be big. Reason why we want to tell you about this is because if I was working with you, you said, you know what, you got to go back and talk to Madeline. Don't forget to ask about your energy rebate because you'll probably know what they're putting down. Doesn't matter who they're insured with. They ask a question and can get a check within 1 month for a few $1,000s. And if that was me, I'd be telling like everybody about you. So when we talk about raving fans, little things like this can go a long way. And do you talk about it pretty often? I think. Yeah.
It's huge because, after everything, it is stress taking on, it's one of the biggest.
25%.
Yeah.
Huge.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a huge, part of their life, a huge chapter in their life. And just getting back like a few $1,000s, after everything, like that's huge. Just a check in the mail, here you go. They won't forget you and I.
Yeah, they totally won't. And the other piece is that it doesn't have to go back on the mortgage. So they can do whatever they choose to do with it. Okay. Take you for dinner for telling them about it. So that's one of the key things. Alex and Rose, any questions on that? Have you heard about it before?
No, I hadn't heard about this. My question is it only Sagen and Scotiabank that offer this option, or are there other lenders that work with this?
So this is an offering through the default insurers. So there's 3 of us. So this is Sagen's default insured energy efficient rebate, but
Yeah.
CMHC and Canada Guarantee, I can't really talk to them, but they have a rebate as well. I don't know I don't know what their terms are and parameters are, but this is the way I look at it.
Okay.
Just talk about it.
Yeah,
Just Tell,
no, that's good
tell
to know.
people about it, and then they can go back and say, hey, is this something that I can get, right?
Just kind of plant the seed in their mind, go back, talk to, your mortgage person about this rebate and.
Yeah. So I think it's and they have, it's 2 years after closing. So say you worked with somebody and you forgot to tell them, call them immediately. So give them a call. Okay, so the number 3 and 4. So number 3, so first time home buyers right now, it was for a long time that they were looking at going out of the city. Right? So they're like, I bought my starter home. Now we want to be just outside of the city. Now what we're finding is they're coming back into city centers. They want to be back. So their lifestyle is a priority. However, affordability within city centers is crazy. Can anyone tell me what the busiest for us as a first time, like as an insurer, where we're seeing the hottest pocket within HRM Nova Scotia right now?
Yeah.
Yes. Enfield, Lance, like East Hants, Enfield, Lance, Elmsdale. It's very busy, and it's because it's just outside. It's that double lane highway. You can get back and forth within 25 minutes, right? It's also 30 minutes to Truro. So, where we're looking at that lifestyle being a priority, it's also about affordability as well. Other piece, and Madeline did a nice job talking about Purchase Plus. They're now looking to have offices within their homes. Because yes, they're going back to work. Now they can work like 2 days a week, right? From home or whatever that looks like. So keep that in mind too. Maybe you do Purchase Plus to make that happen, to make a little quaint little spot within their property. You gotta go. Do you have a card? Do you have a business card? Okay, perfect. Give it to Madeline there. So the final one is larger down payments. So, thank you for coming.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We can't miss that. Can't miss those things. So when we're looking at needing financial support, a lot of home buyers and homeowners right now need financial support. A lot of first-time home buyers and even intenders who are looking at buying within the next couple of years need help. They need help with their down payment. Sometimes they need to have a family member co-sign with them. So that's what we're seeing right now. We are seeing a lot of large gifted down payments. So with Sagen, we're first time home buyers typically, maybe now it's second and third time, but our pie is getting smaller because the gifted down payments from family are getting bigger. So the family saying, we're going to give you an early inheritance. Here's 20% down, right? Are you seeing that?
Seeing a lot. Yeah, and we used to in the past, definitely.
And so are you refinancing parents' houses just out of curiosity to do that?
For that specifically, no.
No.
Usually they have the savings.
To do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
To do it.
There's something that has opened up. So typically for a gifted down payment, it was an immediate family member could give a gift. So like a mother, father, brother, sister. But now it's open to familial. So aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, their family, they can gift the down payment as well. I think you guys do that.
Mhm.
You're on side with that. The other is there's government housing programs. One has been discontinued. So it used to be that federal government program where you had to have your first 5%, and the federal government would give you the second 5, or if you're building the second 10 and they take an equity position, that's gone. Okay. The one that we're seeing a lot of though is this Nova Scotia Down Payment Assistance Program. Do you know about that? Yeah, so the government will give you 5%. And the family stuff has changed within that, right? The terms like family income, I think it's 145,000.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, and the value there's a cap on the value. But for instance, East Hants, I think it's, 500,000 because it's within HRM. Other areas are 375 and 300 depending. I encourage you, Google Nova Scotia Down Payment Assistance Program, because this It's very busy with us.
It's
It's considered a borrow down payment, but it's repaid over 10 years interest free. So there's a lot of down payment conversations, and talk about a little bit about the first time home buyer savings. I know the bank has that, right? So what does that look like? The
So-
account,
basically, it's kind of like kind of treated a little bit like an RSP and a tax-free savings account, all kind of all in one. So clients can deposit one into that account, and it could be considered tax deductible. So there's a lot of benefits there. I've been seeing a lot of clients wanting just to kind of the money in there when they know that they're buying soon. So that's always something that like we would, we'd talk to them about, or their financial advisor that we could connect them with would talk to them about as well. So there's the big pieces is there's tax benefits there for them.
yeah, and you can still take money out of the RSP too, and then you're paying yourself. So lots of different down payment options. We're just seeing that the down payments are getting bigger, the gifts are becoming more prominent because the mortgages are bigger. So to help with affordability, that's definitely a trend that we're seeing. And the other, we just talked about a few of those numbers, immigration. So we're welcoming more and more new Canadians within our province and within Canada. And first-time home buyers are falling into this bucket. You can take a photo of that, no problem. So are falling into this bucket. On the next slide, I'll just show you a stat here. 32% of first-time home buyers were born outside of the country. That's a big number, right? So that's a very big number when we're looking at who's looking to purchase, how do they get started. And I think that we talked a little bit about that New to Canada program. This is probably the busiest program that we're seeing right now. Like aside from the down payments and all of that, this New to Canada program. So they don't need Canadian credit.
They do not.
They can do as little as 5% down.
Exactly. So they don't need to have an established credit history, because that's the main piece for a Canadian. They do need to have established credit history in order to qualify for any type of credit. So we kind of remove that condition when they're new to Canada. And then there's a few extra pieces that we look for in the application. We could potentially pull their credit from outside of the country, from their country of origin. Or we take a look at, depending on down payment, if it's 5% down or 10% down, we take a look at 6 months or 12 months of history of maybe their rental, making sure that they've made their rental payments on time, or a utility bill, their phone bill, those types of things. So that kind of gives us that piece that, okay, they're kind of good to go, and we can qualify them where they don't have that established credit history.
Look at alternative sources.
Exactly.
How many?
60 months or less, so 5 years or less. And we can look at a work permit. Well, so if they're on a work, yeah, exactly. So 184.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And generally, when they've been here for more than 2-3 years, they do have that established credit history, because what we consider is established credit history is like around like 2 years worth of credit, generally, like 2 years worth of history, and then 2 products is generally what we look at. And then when we don't have that, that's when we kind of look at alternate sources to get them approved.
outside of New to Canada, there's another busy product with you, the STEP. Yeah, so I don't know if you've heard of this program, but I think it's great because you can have everything underneath it.
Exactly. So
Called the STEP.
STEP, yeah. So
Okay.
it stands for Scotia Total Equity Plan. So basically, it's a long-term solution Scotiabank offers to their clients. They can access equity in their home. So as soon as they purchase a property, even if they're putting 5% down, we give them access to the 80%. So they can access up to 80% of the value. So as long-term as they bring down their mortgage, they will always have access to that 80%. There are regulations now that's slowly going to start bringing down that 80%, but we still do start it at the 80. And like I said, it's more of a long-term solution, but it's a great solution for clients. Even if they are putting 20% down, they'll start to have access to it right away. So they don't have to run another credit application if they wanted to refinance. Basically, they will always have access to that 80% of the value of their home. So if they wanted to do renovations or take out equity for a down payment on another property, or to purchase another property, we can do that. They can set up, multiple mortgage components. So it's not just one mortgage that we can do under their home. We can do more than one. If they're locked in already, maybe to one term, and they want to, pull out another mortgage, we can do that. And we can also set up lines of credits and multiple of those as well. And the advantage there is because it's a secured line of credit, it's a much lower rate for them. So that's huge. Whereas if you were to just kind of take advantage of an unsecured line of credit, the rate's pretty high right now. And thank God rates went down,
I
and Bank of
know.
Canada brought rates down. So that's good. Hopefully we'll see more of that. But yeah, so that's the big piece that Scotia Bank has with that debt. Or
It's a very
Scotia Total
popular
Equity Plan.
program.
And
too.
we always set it up for them. Always have that access to the equity that they need, which could be helpful for in the future.
Did you use that stuff?
Did you?
I feel like it brings convenience. I have friends who are like self-employed and they're like, it's great for them. Yeah,
It was amazing.
yeah, it's terrific. And you don't have to like refi and then get the legal fees and yeah,
And it was less expensive.
yeah,
So we found we used it a lot because it was less expensive and then just paid it off.
yeah,
Like
which
it-
is great.
Yeah,
At your fingertips.
yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to reconsider your financial situation if that's changed. You always have access to it.
Mhm.
Whereas the other banks will do that. They'll pull your credit again. They'll collect your income documents again if you want access to more equity in your home. We don't do that.
I think that's a good advantage. So those are kind of the key products when we're talking like raving fans, knowing about new to Canada. Even if you're working with anybody who's new to Canada, maybe it's a group doing a presentation. Those are things to definitely keep your finger on the pulse of. And then great products like that, mortgage products that give you that flexibility. Especially if you're looking for people who may be buying multiple properties. So listen, we talked about a lot today. So we talked about who we are, then we looked at the market right now and where we are, and then we looked at those 5 trends for home buyers. Any questions? Anyone online? I don't know, Rose, I think you're still there. Alex, I don't know if you are still there. I see a couple chats, but I don't know how to get to it. Is there anything that you want to ask? Any questions?
No, I'm good. It was just
Okay.
somebody asking about a recording and I just answered it. That's all the chats were.
Oh, okay, terrific. Okay, good. Okay, that's terrific. So, I just want you to know that we're here. So if there's anything or any questions at all, we'll make sure that Alex and Rose that our contact information is shared. On the screen right now, you have Madeline's contact information, my contact information is there, our websites, but also at Sagen, we have lots of content that comes out on home buying, tons of information. So whatever, pick your pleasure. And if you just scan the QR code, you can have a quick link and anything that we share, obviously you can feel free to share as well. It's outside many times of things within the default insurance world, a lot of things on home buying, but it can be a great resource for you as well. And listen, don't let things stop today. Madeline is outstanding. We've been working together for a long time. Your clients will be in great hands with her. So, maybe have a chat and talk about how you can work together.
So any questions that any of you have, please consider me your contact. If there's any, because I'm sure you have clients that ask you mortgage questions as well that you may not have the answer to. So I'm just a phone call or a text message away, and consider me your Scotiabank contact and just your mortgage contact in general going forward. I'd love to work with all of you.
It's interesting that you said that your clients ask you questions. There was a stat from the survey that came out that said 64% of home buyers go to their realtors for mortgage advice. Which is it is a big number. So listen, now you can say, hey, guess what? That's a big number. So anything further that you want to add? We're good.
Well, we're good.
And look, we get 10 minutes back in your day. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. It was great.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, good. I
Thank
hope you
you.
took something away.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any highlights that you're like, oh, this is I'm gonna talk about?
Community in Nova Scotia.
Okay, great.
They need a lot of information.
Do. Well, just, I think it's so brave. You're coming to a new country, learning the language, learning the full banking system, plus then buying a house. There's a lot. Yeah. So,
It is great because they need a lot of information, plus that they're not there yet. But so that means that.
Yeah. they will
The
be.
right information so that they're ready.
Exactly. And that's really important. They may not be ready at that time, like especially where they're kind of like, right, they've just came and just settling in and whatnot. It's really good to kind of have that conversation with them and send them my way. I can set them up for what they need to do to prepare for when they're ready to purchase. It's important too, so they know what to expect.
To have choice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great. Awesome. Thanks everyone online. I only saw 2, Alex and Rose, but I see there were 6 of you on there. So thank you. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Good. If there's anything that you think, oh, we'd love to learn more about this in the future, reach out to us because we have tons of content.
Yeah.
Whether it's a product or, anything, tools and resources, anything like that. So we're here for you, which is great. And if you have your cards, we'd love to have those too. Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. I don't know how to